When my boyfriend said he needed to find himself, I didn't expect he'd do it in another woman's guest suite. My name is Patricia Ward. I'm 38 years old, and for most of my life, I've found peace in order. My mornings start the same black coffee, quiet news, and the hum of the espresso machine filling the silence Nathan never liked. I like knowing exactly how long my laundry takes to dry, how the air smells right before rain, and that I can fix almost anything in this house without help. Nathan used to call me predictable. He said it like a compliment once before predictability became something he wanted to escape from. We'd been together for 12 years. Not a whirlwind romance, not the kind that burns out in a flash. Ours was the steady kind, comfortable, patient, dependable. I thought that was what people built lives on. I was wrong. It started 6 months ago. Nathan came home from work talking about a life architect named Jasmine Vance. He said she'd changed the way he saw the world, that she was teaching him about alignment, energy flow, and authentic purpose. At first I laughed. Sounds like a horoscope wrapped in a TED Talk, I said, stirring the pasta sauce. He didn't laugh. She's different, he said. She makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. I didn't argue. People go through phases, new diets, new books, new obsessions. I assumed this was another one. I even encouraged it. If it makes you happy, go for it, I said. It began with weekly online sessions, then weekend retreats in glass-walled cabins where phones weren't allowed. I paid for most of them, a few thousand here and there. Cheaper, I told myself, than a midlife crisis motorcycle. But one night as I was folding laundry, I noticed how he looked at his reflection. Not like a man lost, but like someone rehearsing a version of himself that didn't include me. Last Tuesday, he came home late, sat across from me at dinner, and exhaled like he'd been practicing the sigh all day. "Patricia," he said softly, "I can't do this anymore." The fork froze halfway to my mouth. Do what? Live like this. Jasmine says I've been suppressing my growth, that I've been dimming my potential for stability's sake. Your potential, I repeated slowly. And Jasmine told you this? She helped me realize it. He leaned forward, eyes glassy, with a conviction that wasn't his own. I need to deconstruct the old me. I need space to find who I truly am. And where exactly will you be doing this? Self-discovery? He hesitated. Jasmine offered me her guest suite for a few weeks. It'll be an immersive program. I stared at him for a long moment, studying the man across from me. Familiar face, foreign tone. My heart should have broken then. Instead, I felt empty. Okay, I said finally. He blinked. Okay. Yes, I said calmly, setting down my fork. If that's what you need to do, then you should do it. He looked disappointed, as if I'd robbed him of a scene he'd already scripted, one with shouting tears and accusations. That's it, he asked, almost irritated. I'm not going to hold you captive, Nathan, I said, taking a sip of water. If you need to leave, then you need to leave. Safe travels. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, the self-proclaimed seeker had nothing to say. The next morning, I watched him drag 3 oversized suitcases down the hallway. Clothes I'd picked, gifts. I'd wrapped pieces of a shared life reduced to luggage. At the door, he paused. I'll call when I'm settled. We can figure out the logistics then. I nodded. Take care of yourself, Nathan. When the door clicked shut, I expected to collapse, to cry, scream something. But I didn't. Instead, I poured myself another coffee and sat in silence. The house was suddenly spacious, quiet, peaceful in a way that made me realize how long it hadn't been. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. But peace doesn't last long when you've lived beside a liar. The next morning, I decided to clean, not emotionally, just practically. I opened the bank app to cancel the joint alerts he used for his favorite stores. That's when I saw a new charge, the Artisan Bean Club, $47.50 every 2 weeks. We drink instant coffee, always have. Curious, I clicked through to the account. The password predictably was JVance2024. The shipping address wasn't Jasmine's coaching studio. It was a home in an upscale suburb. A quick property search confirmed what my gut already knew: Daniel and Jasmine Vance, husband and wife. A sick, molten feeling crawled up my chest. My breathing turned mechanical. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I remembered something, an old iPad in the study. Nathan's technically. He used it before upgrading last year. He'd never wiped it. When I turned it on, it auto-connected to Wi-Fi. A single red notification bubble hovered over the blue iMessage icon, a number too high to count. I tapped it. There they were. Hundreds of messages, late-night confessions, photos, plans for their future, and long exchanges mocking me. She's so rigid. She'd probably schedule emotions if she could. I read until my vision tunneled. Every word was a chisel to the foundation of 12 years. When the anger finally ebbed, something else took its place. Stillness. A sharp, deliberate kind. If he wanted an immersive experience, I'd give him one. I printed every message, 37 pages in color. I bought a wicker basket, the kind people use for anniversaries or spa gifts. Inside, I placed a bottle of champagne, 2 crystal flutes, gourmet chocolates, and a candle labeled New Beginnings. Underneath, I slipped an envelope of printed messages with a note that read, Daniel, welcome to the immersive experience. Thought you might appreciate the curriculum. Cheers, Patricia. I sealed the basket, booked a courier, and paid extra for signature required. Then I made myself another cup of black coffee and waited. That night, as rain tapped against the kitchen window, I felt something between grief and clarity, like a wound finally cauterized. Tomorrow, the real storm would start. But tonight, the silence was mine again. The next morning felt unnaturally still, the kind of silence that hums as if the house itself is holding its breath. By noon, I was halfway through organizing the pantry when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen since yesterday, Nathan. For a second, I just stared at it. I'd expected this, just not so soon. I let it ring out, then again. On the third attempt, I picked up. Patricia, his voice trembled somewhere between anger and desperation. You have to help me. Help you, I repeated, keeping my tone level. With what exactly? She knows, he hissed. Jasmine's husband, Daniel, he knows everything. He got some kind of package. He confronted her last night. I don't even know how. Oh, I think you do, I interrupted quietly. There was silence on the other end, the kind that makes the truth too heavy to speak. She told me he didn't yell. Nathan continued, voice shaking. He just said, get out of my house. He froze her accounts. She's broke, Patricia. She can't even access her car lease. And Daniel's threatening to file for divorce. I took a slow sip of my coffee. That sounds stressful. Patricia, this isn't funny. I'm not laughing. You did this, he shouted. You sent it. You wanted to humiliate us. No, I said calm as glass. You humiliated yourselves. I just supplied context. He was breathing hard, like he was trying not to break something. She's lost everything. And now Daniel's lawyer showed up at her house this morning with the police. They said I was trespassing and gave me an hour to pack my things. I see, I murmured, pretending to think. Did you manage to pack all 3 of your oversized suitcases? Patricia, he snapped. Don't be cruel. Cruel, I echoed. No, Nathan. Cruel was mocking me in texts you didn't even bother to delete. He went quiet. I could almost hear his thoughts scrambling for control. Then his voice softened, almost pleading. Look, I made a mistake. I know that now. I have nowhere to go. I spent all my savings on Jasmine's coaching programs. I can't afford a hotel. Please just let me come home for a while, just until I figure things out. The audacity made me smile. No. Patricia, it's my house too. You surrendered that claim when you decided to live in another woman's guest suite. His breath hitched. You changed the locks, didn't you? For security reasons, I said simply. He cursed under his breath. You'll regret this. I doubt it, I replied, and ended the call. For a while, I just sat there staring at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. My hands were steady. My heartbeat wasn't. Then I laughed softly, almost in disbelief. This was what peace looked like. Uneasy, fragile, but mine. By evening, my inbox pinged with a new email from an unknown address. The subject line read, You don't understand what you've done. It was from Nathan, but the tone wasn't his. It was borrowed. Patricia, this is Jasmine's husband, Daniel. I understand you were involved in sending me certain materials. I don't blame you. If anything, I'm grateful. You gave me clarity. But you should know Jasmine's trying to shift the narrative. She claims those messages were part of an emotional development exercise. I almost choked on my tea. Emotional development. That was a new one. If she contacts you, don't engage. She's capable of manipulation you can't imagine. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Too late for that warning, Daniel, I whispered. Minutes later, another notification appeared. This time, it was Nathan. His tone had changed again from pleading to bitter. You think you're some avenging angel. You're a monster. You destroyed 2 lives over a misunderstanding. Jasmine's business is collapsing. She might lose everything. I hope you're happy. I typed back only 3 words. I didn't destroy. Exposed. Then I deleted the thread and blocked him. But peace is never linear. The following week, whispers began surfacing online. A few vague posts appeared under Jasmine's name about false accusations and jealous individuals spreading lies. Her followers flooded the comments with support and pity. Nathan joined in, replying to her posts with long paragraphs about toxic partners who suppress growth. They were building a new story, one where I was the villain. At first, I wanted to scream to reply to every comment, to paste every screenshot in the thread. But when I called my lawyer, Samantha Tran, her voice was like cold water. Patricia, if you react, they win. Let them talk. Truth doesn't need to shout. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But silence, I was learning, had its own weight. 3 nights later, my mother called. Patricia, she began, voice soft and hesitant. I just spoke with Nathan's mother. She said you threw him out with nothing, that you changed the locks and left him homeless. I felt my jaw tighten. Did she also mention he left me for a married woman? A pause. She said he was confused, misled. I laughed bitterly. He was many things, Mom, but not misled. Patricia, she sighed. You've always been so composed, so cold. Sometimes people make mistakes. You don't have to punish him forever. My throat burned. Cold, I repeated. I was warm for 12 years. I paid for his retreats, supported his dreams, ignored my own instincts. And when he lit a match and burned it all down, I watched quietly. That's not cold, Mom. That's survival. She didn't respond for a long moment. Then quietly, I just don't want you to become bitter. I'm not bitter, I said softly, staring at the dark window. I'm awake. When the call ended, I just sat there, the kind of stillness where even breathing feels too loud. Then I opened my laptop. If they wanted to paint me as a villain, I'd let the truth speak for itself. I typed into a support forum. Has anyone here ever dealt with manipulative life coaches who exploit emotional vulnerability? I didn't use names, not yet, but I knew exactly where this would go. For the first time in months, I felt something like control. And control, I realized, felt a lot like peace. The post didn't take long to gain traction. Within a day, replies poured in, strangers describing eerily similar experiences with transformational mentors who preyed on self-doubt, charged obscene fees, and encouraged emotional dependency. I hadn't mentioned Jasmine's name, but people connected the dots anyway. Her branding was too distinctive, her phrases too rehearsed. The veneer of serenity she wore online began to crack. And with it, Nathan's. By the end of the week, his social media had turned into a battlefield. His friends were split, some defending his journey of growth, others demanding answers. Then came the private messages. You've gone too far, Patricia. This isn't justice, it's revenge. You ruined 2 lives because you couldn't handle rejection. Funny how people call it revenge when a woman simply tells the truth. I ignored the messages. I'd already learned silence could sting louder than words. But the silence didn't last long. Friday morning, a new email appeared in my inbox. This one wasn't anonymous. From Nathan. Subject, you win. For a moment, I just stared at it, heart knocking softly against my ribs. I opened it. Congratulations. Jasmine's business is dead. Her husband's suing her for fraud, and she's threatening to sue me for defamation because I backed her online. My reputation's gone. My job's on hold. I hope you're proud. There was more, an entire paragraph about how I'd weaponized the system against him, how I'd embarrassed him publicly. I scrolled to the end and saw one line that made me pause. You always needed control. Now you've finally got it. I hovered my cursor over reply, then closed the window instead. Control wasn't the right word for what I had. It was clarity, something he'd never valued. That afternoon, I met with Samantha at her office. The blinds were half-drawn sunlight slicing across her desk in sharp geometric lines. She looked up from a file and smiled faintly. You've been busy, she said. I'm sure Nathan told you. Not directly, she said, but his lawyer sent a cease and desist. I raised an eyebrow. For what? Alleged harassment and interference in a business relationship. She slid the letter across the desk. It's posturing. A drowning man flailing for a rope. I read it over, then placed it back neatly. Should I respond? No need, she said, leaning back. Just keep every email, every message. If they cross the line, we'll respond with evidence. Facts, not fury. Facts, not fury? I liked that. When I left her office, the autumn air outside felt sharper. I walked slowly to my car, letting the wind bite my skin awake. They could call it revenge or vindictiveness or cruelty, but the truth was simpler. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was rebuilding. 2 weeks later, Jasmine's name appeared in an online wellness article, the kind that dissected toxic coaching trends. The author didn't mince words. They described her methods as emotionally exploitative, citing anonymous testimonies from former clients. One of them I recognized had quoted my own post almost word for word. The comments were merciless. Sponsors withdrew. Her Instagram vanished overnight. The empire had fallen quietly like a sandcastle under tide. And yet as I sat there watching it unfold, I felt no satisfaction. Just a strange hollowness. You spend months holding your breath for justice, only to realize justice doesn't fill the lungs. I shut the laptop and walked out onto the porch. The night smelled like rain and distant smoke. In the quiet, I whispered to the empty yard, "You did what you had to do." The wind didn't argue. That calm didn't last either. 3 days later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. Patricia. It was Nathan, his voice ragged, half-whispered. "I'm outside." My pulse spiked. I stepped to the window. There he was, standing by the curb in the gray drizzle, one hand stuffed into his jacket, the other clutching his phone. I didn't open the door. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "I need to talk," he said. "Please." "I told you." He cut me off. "I'm not here to argue. I don't have anyone left. Jasmine's gone. My friends think I'm insane. I lost my job. I don't even know who I am anymore." I watched him from behind the curtain. He looked smaller, somehow deflated. But pity is a dangerous thing. It pretends to be compassion until it chains you again. "Nathan," I said quietly, "you wanted to find yourself. Congratulations." "You did." His jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You built a new life on lies and called it growth. I just handed you a mirror." His eyes glistened in the rain. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said softly, "just awake." I hung up and drew the curtain shut. When I peeked again, he was gone. The rain washed away his footprints before I could blink. That night, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, staring at the flickering candle on the table. The same brand I'd sent to Daniel in the basket. New beginnings. It smelled faintly of citrus and smoke. For the first time, I let myself cry. Not for Nathan, not for what he took, but for the version of me who kept pretending everything was fine. The tears came quietly without sobs or theatrics, and when they stopped, I felt lighter. I wasn't broken, just emptied of illusion. The next day, I woke up before sunrise, made my coffee, and sat by the window as dawn painted the sky in slow pinks. There was no notification waiting, no email, no call, just silence. And for the first time, I realized silence wasn't absence. It was recovery. Peace never lasts long when guilt starts looking for company. By the next week, Nathan's calm tone had evaporated. The messages turned venomous, long, chaotic bursts of text, alternating between apology and accusation. "You think you're the hero in this? You've ruined my reputation, Patricia. I loved you, and this is how you repay me." I didn't reply to a single one, but that didn't stop him. Then one night at 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Not a text this time, a call. His voice when I answered was brittle. "She's filing for bankruptcy," he said flatly. "Do you feel good now?" I stayed silent. "She lost everything. She says you'll pay for this, that she'll find a way to destroy you the way you destroyed her." "Nathan," I said softly, "I didn't destroy her. I stopped funding her illusion." He made a small broken sound, half laugh, half sob. "You always find a way to sound superior. Only because you always find a way to sound blind." He hung up without a word. 2 days later, Samantha called me. "Patricia, she said you might want to sit down." I did. "She's filed a complaint, says you're orchestrating a smear campaign, leaking private materials, defaming her business." I exhaled slowly. "And," Samantha chuckled dryly, "and her lawyer attached the text you sent Daniel, including your note. The one that said, 'Welcome to the immersive experience.'" "That's the one." She paused. "They're calling it harassment." I almost laughed. "So telling the truth is harassment now." "According to them, yes. But don't worry, I've drafted a response. You're fine." Her calm steadied me. I'd chosen my lawyer well. But when I hung up, the air felt heavier. For the first time, I wondered if revenge had its own gravitational pull, something that dragged you closer the more you resisted. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked under the shifting wind. I walked from room to room, touching the walls. The framed photographs, the small traces of a life I'd built from quiet routine. Everywhere I looked, I saw echoes of him. And then I saw something else, something I hadn't noticed before. The gap on the living room shelf where his books used to be. The faint outline of dust, shaped like a square, what was once a photograph of us on a pier sunset behind us whined in his hair. The space was empty now, but it didn't ache. It breathed. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. "Patricia Ward." "Yes, this is Detective Monroe with the County Sheriff's Office." My pulse jumped. "Is there a problem?" "No problem, ma'am. We just wanted to confirm an incident report. A Mr. Nathan Keller filed a statement yesterday alleging you've been stalking and defaming him online." My mouth went dry. "What?" "It's standard procedure. We're obligated to check both sides before dismissing. Based on our review, it looks like there's no evidence to support his claims. But I wanted to make sure you were aware." I exhaled slow. "Thank you, officer." After he hung up, I sat there staring at the phone. Nathan had escalated from words to official lies. But instead of anger, I felt something else. Pity. When desperation runs out of love to beg for it, starts looking for power to steal. Later that afternoon, Samantha emailed again. Complaint dismissed. No action will be taken. Don't engage with him. He's trying to provoke a reaction. That one sentence felt like the sound of a cell door locking behind him. A few days later, my mother called again. Patricia, honey, she began cautious. I ran into Nathan's mother at the grocery store. She said he's well, not doing well. Lost his job, his apartment. She's worried about him. I kept my tone even. He made his choice as mom. She said he's blaming you for ruining his career, that you've been spreading things online. Do you believe her? A long pause. I believe you're not cruel, but I also believe you don't always know when to stop. Her words landed like a small, clean blade. After we hung up, I stood at the window, watching rain streak down the glass. My reflection looked different now, sharper, harder. Was I cruel? Maybe, but cruelty wasn't the intent. Clarity was, and clarity I'd learned hurts just as much as betrayal. That night, while scrolling through old photos, I found a video I hadn't seen in years. Nathan and me in the backyard, building a garden bed. He was laughing, covered in soil. I was teasing him about his crooked rose. I watched it twice. Then I deleted it. Closure doesn't come when the pain stops. It comes when the memories lose their power. The following week, Samantha called with a small update. Jasmine's lawyer withdrew her claim, she said. Apparently, her own husband's legal team provided them with copies of your gift basket letter and the printed texts. It's over. I let out a laugh, half disbelief, half relief. You're serious. Completely. Turns out Daniel used your evidence in their divorce proceedings. She's losing everything. For a moment I didn't speak, then quietly, good. Patricia, Samantha said gently, you've won. Try to let yourself rest. But rest didn't come easy. Winning didn't feel like victory. It felt like finishing a marathon barefoot, bloody numb, but somehow still standing. That evening I went to the garage. The air smelled of sawdust and oil, my father's old workbench still intact. I picked up one of his carving tools, ran my fingers along the handle. He used to say, if you want to fix something right, start by sanding the rough edges. I stared at the plank of wood on the table. Maybe that's what I'd been doing all along, sanding my life down to truth, no matter how much it scraped. Outside, thunder rumbled softly. Inside, I turned on the lamp, rolled up my sleeves, and began to carve. Each stroke steadied my hands. Each curl of wood that fell away felt like something leaving me. Anger, fear, doubt. By midnight, a small, simple box sat before me. Unfinished, but honest. I closed the lid gently. It was time to stop dismantling, time to start rebuilding. Months passed, and the noise around Jasmine and Nathan began to fade, not because people forgot, but because the world has a short attention span for other people's chaos. What had once been scandal was now just gossip dust settling over their ruined reputations. My life, on the other hand, had narrowed into something quiet and deliberate. Mornings with coffee, evenings with wood shavings on the garage floor, and silence, beautiful, heavy silence. But peace, I'd learned, doesn't mean absence of conflict. It means living unbothered by the noise that used to control you. One morning, while watering the plants, I got a message from Samantha. Small update, Jasmine filed for bankruptcy officially last week. Her husband's lawsuit stripped her of most assets. She's attempting to rebrand under a new name, but it's not taking off. There was something poetic about that, the woman who claimed to help people find themselves now hiding behind another identity. Nathan apparently wasn't doing much better. A mutual acquaintance from years back sent me a message I didn't ask for. Ran into Nathan today. He's working part-time at a supply store. Looks rough. Told everyone you set him up. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't. I typed a polite thank you and left it there. Because the truth was, I didn't want to know anything about him anymore. Knowing had cost me enough already. That afternoon, I walked to the old study, the one that had once been ours. Nathan's desk still sat in the corner, now empty except for one drawer I hadn't opened since he left. Inside, I found a few forgotten receipts, an expired gym card, and an old photo strip of us. From a fair, his arm around me, both of us laughing. Faces blurry from movement. For a moment, I almost smiled. We'd been happy once, or maybe I'd just been trying hard enough for both of us. I folded the photo, placed it inside the wooden box I'd carved weeks ago, and locked it. Closure doesn't always mean throwing things away. Sometimes it means sealing them where they can't touch you anymore. 2 days later, Samantha called again. There's something else you should know, she said. Daniel's team sent a thank you note. I frowned. A thank you? Yes. They said your evidence helped finalize his divorce and saved him from a messy financial settlement. He also mentioned he'll be donating a portion of his settlement to a women's legal advocacy fund in your name. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. That's unexpectedly kind, I managed. Sometimes justice circles back, Samantha said softly. It just takes the long way. When I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, staring out at the rain. For months, I'd thought of what I'd done as revenge, a calculated strike. But maybe in its own quiet way, it had been something else. Correction. That night, I finally opened the window in the bedroom. Cold air swept through the curtains, crisp and new. I hadn't opened that window since the night Nathan left. The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked earth and wood shavings from the garage. The smell of my life now grounded tangible, real. I made tea, sat by the window, and started writing not about Nathan or Jasmine, but about me. How it felt to lose everything predictable and discover peace in unpredictability. How it felt to be called cold for the crime of not breaking. It wasn't a story for anyone else to read. It was just mine. Weeks turned into months. I kept to my small rituals: coffee at dawn, woodworking in the afternoon, long walks in the evening. Then one afternoon, while running errands, I saw him. Nathan. He was standing outside a hardware store, wearing a faded jacket, talking loudly on his phone. The edges of him seemed smaller somehow, as if the world had shrunk to fit his mistakes. For a moment he looked up and our eyes met. Neither of us moved. His expression was unreadable. Not sadness, not anger, just recognition. The kind of look that says, "You used to know me." I gave a small nod, nothing more, and walked past him. He didn't call out my name. And that silence, that simple absence of sound, was the final goodbye I didn't know I'd been waiting for. That evening I carved again. My hands were steadier than ever. The rhythm of knife against wood felt almost like prayer. I wasn't carving boxes anymore. I was shaping something new, a chair, simple and strong. My father used to say a chair is trust. You sit down because you believe it will hold you. Maybe that's what this was all about, learning to build something I could trust again. Not a man, not a promise. Myself. It's been almost a year since that night Nathan walked out of my life with 3 suitcases and a speech about authenticity. I still make my coffee the same way, black, no sugar, but it tastes different now. Cleaner, freer. The house that once felt too quiet now hums softly with life again. The clock ticks without echoing. The air feels lighter. The walls once heavy with memory are just walls again. And the silence, it's no longer the sound of absence, it's the sound of ownership. The divorce finalized last month. It was a long, ugly process. Nathan tried to argue for compensation, claiming emotional distress. His lawyer even quoted one of Jasmine's mantras in court, something about energy debt. Samantha nearly laughed out loud. We settled outside of court in the end. He got what the law required, no more, no less. When it was over, Samantha handed me the papers and said, "Congratulations, Patricia. You're officially free." Free! Such a small word for something that used to feel impossible. I found out through mutual acquaintances that Jasmine's new rebranding failed. Her podcast fizzled after 3 episodes. Her website shut down. Her ex-husband Daniel bought a lakeside house in Oregon. Married again quietly. And Nathan, he's working in a supply store, renting a room above a garage. Sometimes he tries to paint himself as the victim, the man who fell for the wrong mentor, but even pity doesn't want him anymore. A few weeks ago, I saw him again by chance. The same hardware store parking lot. He was arguing on the phone, shoulders slumped the edge and his voice gone. When he turned, he saw me. Just a flicker of recognition. He didn't look angry or ashamed, just hollow. I waited for that pang of nostalgia, that echo of love that once tied me to him. But there was nothing. Just quiet. He nodded faintly. I nodded back, and that was it. The last chapter closed without a word. That night I came home, lit a candle on the kitchen counter, the same kind I'd once placed in that basket marked New Beginnings. The flame flickered steady and small. I opened my email and saw his name again. For a moment I almost ignored it, but curiosity has a way of slipping through the cracks. His message was long, disjointed, desperate. You destroyed everything. My job, my future, my peace. You turned people against me. I hope you're happy now. I read it twice, then once more. The old me, the woman who once believed love meant endurance, would have felt guilty, would have crafted a calm, empathetic reply to ease his conscience. But that woman doesn't live here anymore. I clicked reply and typed 2 words. I am. Then I set a filter to send all future emails from him directly to trash. Days blend quietly now. I work reed sandwood in the garage. I've built small things. A jewelry box for my sister, a coffee table, a chair sturdy enough to hold anyone's weight, including mine. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at nothing. Not out of joy exactly, but out of stillness, the kind that comes when everything unnecessary has finally burned away. My friends say I seem different, calmer, but it's not calm, it's awareness. I learned that love can make you blind, but self-respect can make you see in the dark. Last weekend, I invited a few close friends over for dinner, something I hadn't done in years. The table was small but full. Laughter spilled through the kitchen, filling every quiet corner that used to echo. When everyone left, I stood alone in the doorway for a long time, watching the night settle outside. The stars were faint, but they were there. I thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the revelations, the pain, the silence, the slow rebuilding. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to explain any of it to anyone. Some stories don't need closure, they just need distance. It's strange, really, the things we think will break us often become the very things that rebuild us. Nathan found his truth in destruction. I found mine in what remained. And if he were to ask me today whether I regret it, whether I regret letting him walk out, exposing the lies, burning down the illusion, I'd tell him the same.